gentlemen, welcome back to A Hoops Journey, episode 129. Pretty impressive stuff, and thank you if you're still checking out our episodes and with us from day one. We really appreciate you. I am personally excited. Obviously, this is a basketball-related podcast with basketball people and very, very heavy Canadian content. And we have, I don't know if we're going to call them the brains behind the operation, but we'll get into some very, very cool things. A leader for our organization in Canada basketball, and someone who I'm really excited to get to know a little bit better, but also hear his perspective on why we're where we are with Canada basketball and what we need to do to keep going, because any good leader is constantly thinking with the growth mindset about what's next. So I'm thrilled to chat more about that. And this is our first connection, but I'm also excited because I've booked my ticket to Las Vegas in July as well. So hopefully I will bump into none other than Mr. Michael Bartlett. How are you, sir?
Very well. Thank you. Excited to be here. Excited to talk hoops. And I'm very, very taken aback by how the basketball community is really adopting our stories to be told in their voices and in your voice. And I'm certainly very appreciative of it. So thank you.
Yeah, no. It's a fun adventure, and I love podcasts personally. I don't know what, when you have your time, what you do, which is probably minutes a day. That's about it. But yeah. And it just rung with me. I was like, there's so many great people out there that have great stories. So it doesn't have to be, Kevin Garnett or Jason Kidd sharing their story. We have our own version of those people in our country. So, and I agree with your sentiment. And I think as jealous and competitive as I am inside seeing you on other podcasts, there's no harm and it's all good, because the more people can share their stories means the more we hear and more perspective, and we just help grow things. So thank you for those kind words. And it's a fun adventure. I'm sitting in my athletic director's office. I have a spare to end the day and find the time to do it and make it work. So it's been really, really fun.
Awesome. Good to hear.
And how's life for you? I mean, you and I have been connecting a little bit, trying to figure out a time. You've had some, business travel with FIBA stuff, and then had the NBA All-Star Weekend. How are those things? Do you get a chance, when you're at All-Star Weekend, is it connecting and collaborating, or do you actually get an opportunity to maybe like put your feet up, have a beer, and have some laughs as well?
Yeah, a little both. It's funny, when I took this job in March 2021, so almost 3 years ago. Well, 3 years ago today.
Congratulations.
It was a pandemic job. It wasn't a travel job. And I worked with Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment for a decade. And of course, that's more of a regional, or, I was always out, but I was usually out within driving distance from home. And I'm a bit of a road dog now, which the family and I have had to adjust to. You speak about All-Star Weekend. Back in 2016, I had the privilege of being one of the producers on MLSE's behalf, working with the NBA to produce the Toronto All-Star Game that year. Kobe's last, the best dunk-off ever. And I will argue we also threw the best parties ever. But I have stayed very close with my All-Star fraternity, we'll call it, of
Sure.
producers at the NBA. So I had a chance actually to drive down to Indy and at their request, bring my three kids who were too young to enjoy All-Star when we had it in 2016. So we were at the mascot breakfast. We did, I did, of course, all my FIBA meetings and a whole bunch of networking meetings while I was there, but was able to have some time with my family. They met some of our Canadian athletes and certainly know some of our coaches. Nathaniel Mitchell was on the bench for the Rising Stars team that won with Ben and Shaden Sharp on it. So it was just great to see that everywhere I looked, I ran into another Canadian basketball or basketball in Canada supporter. And, I think we've taken over All-Star in a very sneaky way. We seem to be everywhere. So it's a lot of fun to be down there.
That's cool. What are the ages of your kids?
14, 11, and 7.
Oh, man. Were they just in heaven?
Yeah, it was, my 14-year-old daughter, it was a perfect mashup of a sport that she loves and, pop culture everywhere. Maggie, my my middle, really big into sport in hockey. But I think after being at NBA All Star, she sees like there's a cooler version of a sport, and it is basketball. So she paid a lot of attention to that. And then my little guy Grayson is just hoops through and through. So he had a lot of fun, made eye contact, and got away from Shaq. They met Shay, they met Ben. So yeah, it was a milestone moment for all of us. Just a combination of work and family being able to come together like that. It was a really special. And of course, my wife Alyssa, who is the one that really supports all the things in our lives and makes it possible for Canada basketball to kind of overtake my life at times. She's a big Hoops fan as well, so it was great to have her there with me too.
Oh, good. I was going to say, so it wasn't like you brought her down and had to find her the best spa in Indianapolis. She was on board with.
Oh gosh, no.
Yeah. You're looking for her. Where'd she go?
I tell the story that I asked a girl on a date who was wearing a backwards hat with a beer in her hand at a football game for a reason, because I knew she liked sports. So
I love it. There we go. That's great. And did you go through the mental side of things when you went down? Is it, after, I mean, obviously the women just being pretty dominant in our country for a while, really have been on the stage. But what happened last summer, is it a little more chest out these days, or is it business as usual for you?
It'd be a little bit more chest out. I'm okay to admit that. At FIBA meetings, at NBA meetings, it's very obvious that people are paying attention to what is happening at Canada basketball with our men's program, and finally catching up to our women's program and the reputation and performances that they've had. With that said, I think both our men and women are still hunting real credibility with podium finishes at the Olympic Games. And our women came in fourth in the World Cup, men came in third in the World Cup. We still, as we pace towards Paris, expect podium finishes for ourselves to be in games that matter. And I think that's the relevancy that we want for ourselves, that we expect of ourselves. And that'll just put us even more into the mix as one of those powerhouses, that it's no longer, I use this, sentence a lot at work, being in is no longer the win. We don't just want to qualify. We don't expect just to qualify. We expect to compete in meaningful games, which means semifinals, which means competing for medals.
Yep. We had Steve Bauer on a few episodes ago, and he gave some great reflection on the last Olympics and just how the standard has changed for them, right? Like it's like exactly how you said it. And it's no longer, hey, we're just fuzzy Canada and happy to be here. It's like, wow, we didn't medal. That's a disappointment. Right. Yeah. And he gave some really good reflection on that. And I think it's important for fans to hear that. And for them to also up their standard too, right? And be excited and be confident. There's no more doubt in the back of a fan's mind anymore. I think it's a confidence, right? And so those are great words. Let's go back with you. Let's talk about you a little bit. Young guy growing up. Sounds like sport has been something that's always been a part of your life. Give us some reflection on that. What were the sports that you chose? And then we'll get into more kind of like, how you moved forward and figured all out, like the adult side of life. But what was little Bartlett like growing up?
Sports was on TV. Sports was what I read. The joke is my parents got me a Sports Illustrated subscription because I wouldn't read anything else. And it's funny. I've worked in now basketball, hockey, soccer, and football. And the only sport I played growing up was baseball. And the one job that I haven't had is with the Blue Jays.
Wow.
However, I'll give the Blue Jays credit for lighting a fire in me, recognizing that sport was a business. A really good family friend of ours, Mike Cannon, was the original kind of team ops and traveling secretary of the Toronto Blue Jays. We then became friends with the Starkman family. Howie Starkman was the PR director for the Blue Jays. Marnie Starkman is now the VP of Business Operations with the Blue Jays, and I've known her for almost my whole life. So recognizing that Mike Cannon, said to me very early on, like, listen, Bartlett, you're not going to have a future as a baseball player. But there's jobs in sport that can get you around baseball for the rest of your life. And I'm a testament to that. So that as a young teenager, kind of lit a fire. The Raptors then landed in the Toronto area. And in my grade 11 high school class, we had to do a project on a new business coming to town. And I picked the Toronto Raptors. And I remember my teacher saying, "That's not a business, that's a sport franchise." And I said, "Well, you just wrote my hypothesis. Now my hypothesis is going to be, let me prove to you that it's a business." And we did a field trip. We did, like, you name it, we did it. He gave me carte blanche to like really lean in and prove it. And from that moment on, I was like, I'm going to work in sport one day because I'm certainly not going to be an athlete in it. And I'll be honest with you, I got to university, didn't pursue it all that much. I saw the lineup of people that were trying to get jobs in sport, and I didn't know anybody, but I kind of, I worked at Air Miles for a while. I worked with some amazing charitable organizations for a while. And then one day, MLSE was hiring an executive director for its MLSE Foundation. And a friend of mine sent me the job and said, "You're in charity, you love sports, you should go for this." And I remember I was watching, I think it was a Raptors game in my basement, typed up a resume, cover letter, sent it off. I was like, I still don't know anybody there. There's no way I get this job. And March of 2011, I started MLC and I worked there for 10 years. And that's why I'm here today as well.
Wow. Where did that sort of, obviously the sports you've touched on, but where did that sort of business side in your mind, where did that come from? Was it something that you were reading when you were younger? Was there a family influence? Was it the people that you mentioned already?
Yeah, like my dad was with Bell Canada for his entire career and worked in business. The joke, there's pictures of me, as a young kid walking around the house with a briefcase and talking on a phone, pretending like to be a businessman. That's all I knew. That's what I saw.
But the briefcase was full of Sports Illustrated. That's the only
much,
difference.
For sure. Ultimately, and I'll say, like, my passion, I was probably one of one in my friend group, and was for a long time in terms of paying attention to basketball as well. I would watch Ahmad Rashad show in the afternoon. Yes. I would go into Jordan. I bought and actually saw it at the FIBA offices in their little Hall of Fame. I bought the Dream Team video game for Sega Genesis. And actually, to think about now going to the Olympics with, you would call like Canada's first version of a real dream team, to think back to young Mike, young Bartlett playing that game, and now still kind of playing that game, just in a very
kind of poetic.
I certainly don't pick the teams, but like, to be associated with what Canada is creating for basketball, men's and women's basketball, boys and girls basketball in this country. If you had drawn a correlation from those days to these days, it would all make sense. Although in between, none of it made sense.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I love that. It's good reflection. So let's just touch on the thing that I love to hear, and with many people that we've talked on the show here, mentioning sort of willing to throw themselves out there, take a risk. You go to the basement, type up the resume for a job that you think, I don't even have a chance here. Coach Bauer, same thing. This media relations thing with Canada, I don't even know, but I'm going to apply, and then it morphs into another role, right? Yeah. And I think that's a good takeaway for people to just go. You got to step out of the comfort zone, try things that you're maybe not willing to, or don't even think that you're there, and learn on the fly. Talk about that transition to that role. A huge role, and the amount of time that you spend in there, the things that you learned along the way, and then why was it time to switch up again?
Well, I think the 10 years I spent at MLSE were the absolute best 10 working years, of my life.
Why? What was so good about it?
Well, it was such a sandbox to learn. There was so much going on. Every night there was a different sporting event or concert. Every meeting there was a new idea or challenge. I learned a lot about trying. I've really stolen a shoot or shoot mentality from not just watching basketball players, but watching the way that my colleagues at MLSE attacked opportunities. And you just have to try. You don't have to be perfect at it. But if you're not trying, you're literally just sitting there, standing still. And, the attraction to then be part of Canada basketball was also about creating ultimate vulnerability for myself. I worked for and continue to be really good friends with. In fact, she's on the board of Canada Basketball. Worked for Shannon Hosford from the day I was hired to the day I left. And technically, I still not work for her because she's on the board at Canada Basketball. But like the opportunity now to like go test some of what I learned under her, some of what I learned in working with others in an environment, and pour and give permission for ambition and just try. And failure is not failure. Hard work is the only controllable variable. Like these are some of the things that I believe in. And to then adopt that, integrate that kind of thinking into a working environment for the purposes of driving sport outcomes in a sport that I love for a country that I'm beholden to. It was the perfect mix. It was the perfect reason to leave at a time when like I didn't want to leave. I wasn't looking. But then when I saw this job, I was like, that's it. Like I've always wanted to. There's a joke, and it wasn't actually in my marriage vows, but I joked that in my marriage vows, it pretty much said like, I will never run for political office. This is my version of it without being a politician. Like I want to do this for the country. I want our organization to do this for the country. I saw firsthand what the Raptors championship meant on the streets of Toronto that day. That was a basketball celebration. It wasn't just a Raptors celebration. It was the mosaic of Canada on the street. Far too many people on the street, and I didn't plan well enough for that, I admit. But ultimately, I think what this sport can be for this country is that over and over and over again in its sentiment, because I think we're about to light a real fire of interest in basketball in this country. It won't just be because the Raptors did it. I want us to have the CB effect as well.
Mm-hmm. And then we just get fanatics to get more than 12 characters on a jersey and we'll be good, right?
Yeah. No kidding. No kidding.
That was, someone actually asked that question.
Yeah, no doubt.
No lie. Yeah. I
We
believe
could probably get away with just
no
putting
cap.
SGA on the back and everybody would know what it is.
That's right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know what your exact title was in the previous role, but you throw in something like CEO. Is that intimidating to you?
Mm-hmm.
How do you go about, just from a leadership perspective, being a teacher, coach, a father, a husband, different leadership roles in our lives? What's your approach as CEO? I think it's, people attach certain things to that, right? Maybe fair or unfair. But how do you go about it as a businessman and as someone who knows that you have a whole bunch of people that you've got to collaborate and work with?
It's intimidating. It's not a job I've ever had before. So, the training wheels, you hope they stay on for as long as possible. Good news is I've got an amazing set of leadership peers from around the sector that I do rely on for advice. Some in NSO, some in pro sports, CEOs and other capacities. Our board is full of CEOs, past and present, as well. So relying on them for gut check. Ultimately being honest with your staff. Listen, I've never done this before. This is what I hope to be able to accomplish with you. I'm not one that leads based on a title, based on a hierarchy. I try to lead based on the transfer of ambition and energy and have everybody feel like it's theirs too, because it is. So I have learned some mistakes along the way already about trying to be a chief do everything officer, a CDEO, and that isn't sustainable. It doesn't work, and quite frankly, it drives my staff nuts, my teammates nuts, because they're like, "Listen, we've got this. You just have to go do this, and if you're not doing this, then we can't do that." So, having open, honest conversations with your teammates, your peers, your leadership team, being vulnerable, being honest, admitting when the mistakes happen so that they don't feel so bad about taking risks themselves and maybe making a mistake. I'm just trying to create a culture that understands that hard work is the best work. The easiest way is probably not the way that we're going to take, but people matter. At the end of it, people matter. It's actually, my sleeplessness often comes from my worry that I've disappointed people. Not didn't hit a budget target, didn't hit a number, didn't hit a shot. It's all about the people.
What can we say about the people at Parkside? especially our guy, Sam Payne, a huge supporter of basketball in our community. The gentleman does many things behind the scenes that people don't know about. And one of those is supporting our podcast from literally day one. Sam reached out to us and said, hey, I like what you're doing. How do we get involved? And what you can do is find them at any local government store or come down to the brewery, sit on the patio, sit in the back, listen to the music, come for music trivia night, whatever it is. The wide variety of beer that they offer is second to none. And Port Moody and the Brewers Row is a great place to be. We are so appreciative of Parkside Brewery, we can't even say it in enough words. Head down. We hope to see you Parkside. And if you can't, find a way to support because they do a lot for us. Cheers. Interesting. Love that. Also, have noticed that you've used vulnerability twice already. So love that too. Big Brene Brown guy myself. And I think we just know so much better. And it's so true. I think maybe how we grew up, I know in my family, I love my dad, but it was kind of a hierarchy, right? And then we learn and grow that, I don't know how you feel, but the way I parent is completely different than what I thought I would be, but I just know better now. Right. And I know some people from the outside and maybe grandparents look and go, oh, you guys are soft or whatever, but my kid's a kid. He's 7. He's a human. I want to talk to him like a human, right? It's not my house, my rules. I mean, there are some standards, but, and I think that applies in life and business as well.
And I think building off of that, like there are rules in a house or a work environment, and I have them, but there is also there's no pretense that the leader or the head of the household or the head of the organization is the only one that knows what's going on, and whose voice is the only one that needs to be heard. So the vulnerability is quite frankly rooted in the acceptance of the fact that I might know what I'm doing in this particular moment, but I know I don't know what I'm doing in that particular moment, and I need somebody to fill in that gap. And that's the benefit of coming. I did play team sport, and now I've grown a career on the business side of team sport. Team sport is a wonderful teacher of that perspective, because the 4 other people without the ball have to be doing the best possible thing without the ball in order for the person with the ball to have the best possible opportunity to score.
Yeah, I love it. And I mean, for us too, at the end of the day, we're just going to do what our wives tell us to anyways, right? So
yeah, good call.
Well, I thought I'd do something fun. And I told you before we started here, I remixed it a little bit. And I think because of, in the sense of you're a unique guest for us, I thought it'd be fun to just sort of ask the listeners. We do have quite a few committed listeners, and I thought they might be interested in asking you some questions. Are you good with that?
Yeah, you bet. Let's do it.
Right on. So the first question is, what do you see as the biggest challenge for Canada basketball right now?
Business Bartlett goes straight to finances. Like we are investing more.
Never going to go away.
Yeah, like we're investing more in basketball outcomes and competitive advantages than ever before on purpose. Probably like more so in a pro sport mentality of invest it now, win, and the money will make it back on the back end. So I'm not, shying away from that truth. But I'd still say the biggest challenge for us is getting the attention of the country when we don't play 81 games a year. We don't benefit like the Raptors do of captivating that attention for 3/4, of the year. But how do we then become always on from a dinner table conversation standpoint, from an energy and excitement standpoint, when we're not always on the court? And if we can actually solve that challenge, guess what? The business challenge gets taken care of real quick. So, just how we create an always on narrative about the excitement of what fans can expect from us and getting to know our athletes and getting to know our coaches and our programs, even when they're not on court. That's a challenge for us. One that I think we can solve, but is one that I think we need to spend the most time on right now.
hmm And I think too, very good point. Just about tapping into today's generation, right? And the access we do have. We grew up reading Slam magazine, Sports Illustrated, whatever, right? These young people now, if a player chooses to, can give a lot about themselves just through a quick 1 minute, reel on Instagram, right? And so the connections are there and the powers through different things and using, Canada Basketball social media and stuff too, for sure. And I've always been curious. I know it's got to be a grind and the biggest challenge, which is funny because the next question that ties in and one that I'm curious too is why should corporate Canada care about Canada Basketball? What's the selling point there? Oh, the facial expression. Here we go.
Well, now
And I'm not turning this isn't turning into an advertisement. I think
no.
these are good
Listen,
questions.
I've got a very clear way of articulating.
If we're going to get you on here, we got to take advantage
Yeah, no, I appreciate
and
the
I think
question.
this is great. Yeah.
We're in a few months, we're going to roll out what we're calling our new winning ambition: best in the world and best for Canada.
Mm.
Best in the world is what we're aiming to be. Best for Canada is what we're choosing to be. An NSO, our mandate as a national sporting organization, is not actually on paper in our articles of incorporation. It's only to operate programs to try to be best in the world.
Mm.
And yet, as an organization, we're looking at the landscape of sport right now. There have been some mistakes made in the sector. There is now a lack of trust because of it. But I look at what our sport is, how our sport is priced in this country for communities, the way that fans, the very diverse fans, both play, watch, coach, officiate our game, and how this game stands to really reflect what Canada is. Best for Canada becomes something that brands can truly trust, that we're also going to be best in the world, but undeniably and non-negotiably, we're going to be best for Canada. And that's why I'd get involved with us right now, because I think the trust meter can be unfallible. And I think the performance meter, it's an exciting rocket ship to be on when you can get in early and watch a program go from here to here. But what you can trust all the way along is that the values, the fuel of the organization is going to be values. And I'm proud of our organization for making tough decisions along the way in the last few years. How we're investing in our women's program, it's the same as how we're investing in our men's program. There's not a lot of NSOs, and I'm not talking smack in any other NSOs, but we don't talk about it enough ourselves. Our women's team is first class flights, single rooms, training camps, extended training camps with longer rosters, and pro head coaches that we've hired from Spain and moved over here. Like, not a lot of sport organizations are doing it that way. And you can trust in us to make hard decisions that are values-based decisions.
Love it. And it is true. And I teach at an independent school, right? And we're constantly saying, why don't we celebrate ourselves more? It's not bragging, but you have to let the people know. You got to let the clients and the customers know, right?
Yeah, my teammates have heard me say this probably more times than not. Like, if somebody else is speaking from their podium, it's worth more. So don't get me wrong. I don't think we stand up at our own podium and say, hey, look at us. But I'm taking this opportunity because of the question to say, like, I think the values base of Canada Basketball as an organization is worth investing in. Oh, and by the way, it's not just that. We're also on a performance rocket ship. So you can have both as a brand partner or as a donor or whatever, to be associated with moments that the country is never going to forget because we're going to give them those moments, and also an organization that is never going to hinge on its values. Well, that's worth investing in.
Just had leave a little silence there for the people to soak it in. I love it. And we don't do the video, but listeners, you could see the passion, body language changed, hands are moving. It's there. There's some fire. Now, you mentioned values 2 or 3 times. Curious, what is the value of Canada Basketball? What are the things that you stand for? Because I think they're important. If we don't, teach the kids the values are what guide you, right? They're your decision makers. Doesn't mean it always goes perfect. We screw up, but what are some of those for
Yeah, we talk
Canada
about them a lot
basketball?
too. We own our truths. We're not hiding from mistakes that we've made. We've uncovered. We've been doing some very purposeful work in equity, diversity, and inclusion, specifically in barriers facing racialized peoples in officiating. And we've stood up and said, yeah, you know what? We've identified that there are some barriers, there are some conscious and unconscious biases. So owning your truths is important, and then doing something about it. I think certainly from a inclusivity standpoint, we've been purposeful in our programmatic and even our proactive way in the way that we're hiring, filling roles, recruiting for roles, and being very inclusive in our approach, so that we're not just waiting for, everyone to come to us. We're actually going out and finding candidates that meet the criteria, that meet the skill set, and also represent the mosaic of Canada. And then finally, I think just as an organization that is self-aware, and I think that's actually that's a value.
Yeah, I agree.
Self-awareness of where we exist, where we land in the ecosystem of importance. We're very self-aware and self-reflective in our approach, and more often than not, we're making decisions that support the values first. And then we know that strong values decisions are going to be performance oriented as well, because of, it's good for Canada, it's good for basketball, which means it's good for the results.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. You mentioned the rocket ship. Mm-hmm. How did that rocket ship feel when the buzzer went to get the bronze for the U.S. there? That must have been a pretty, what are the feelings and emotions there? I mean, obviously, you have to, there's people watching, but inside, you got to just be like, let's go. Or maybe you're behind, and maybe you're in the tunnel losing your mind. Yeah.
I didn't hide it all that well, I'll tell you.
Good.
It was, I will say, I think actually that game against Spain, that comeback in the fourth, and the buzzer goes off, and we've won the game. The players don't know this at the time, but we know that we've also qualified for the Olympics. That was the flood of real emotion. I drained. The pressure, the stress, the joy, all, because I think, as a program, we were pretty clear that that's what we expected of ourselves, and we weren't going to accept anything less. So the medal, to a degree, became a bit of a bonus on it.
Yeah, sure.
But beating the US, doing it, the way that we did it, sticking together after Bridges hits that 3-pointer to send it into overtime, and then going on a 7-0 run to start overtime, and just being like, yeah, okay, we still have this. It was a confidence marker for the team. We were very professional about it. The athletes were, it was funny. It was just like, they were like, yeah, this is what we were supposed to do. They didn't go over the top in their celebration, because I think already they were like, this was the sign to the basketball community that we are not going to be pushed around anymore. I think it's exciting now heading into Paris. We're not going to surprise anybody. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But you know what I'll say? I had a great conversation with Jim Tooley, who's the president of USA Basketball, in the tunnel afterwards. The basketball community was super happy for us. And maybe Jim wasn't happy, but he was. He's like, good for you.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think we created a monster, because now they're bringing the Monstars to Paris.
No doubt. Yeah. That's true. And just pause to take a second and say, props and kudos to you and your entire team. I think I can't tell how many people were texting with watching those games, getting up at weird hours to support, and how much it means. I mean, we did a 20th anniversary or 23-year anniversary pod got as many guys from the last team or whatever that we could, and chat with them. And even them just talking about how happy they are. I think everybody's been waiting for that moment for a long time. And like you say, I think sometimes people, they see Michael Bartlett, CEO of Canada Basketball, and they see the suit, but they don't know just how invested you are. It's not just, I'm not just trying to run numbers and meet quotas, right? These are humans, and it's a sport, and it's a really different angle. And you're taking all of that, all well under a pretty strict budget, trying to make that happen. And so props to you, man. And thank you for all the time, effort, and energy that it's taken. And I hope at some point you've taken a second, maybe just 1 second to, say, hey, well done, team, but let's keep building.
Yeah, I certainly don't zoom out all that often, and much to my own fault, to see the progress that we've made. What I will say is Rowan Barrett, who runs our men's program, Denise Dignard, who runs our women's program, Ron Young, who runs our 3x3 program, like they are all in on ensuring that we have no excuses and that our teams are ready. And that shows up, on the court. I think ultimately, when I think of, our business team, our finance team, our domestic team, like everybody's doing their part towards evolving this organization and adding fuel to the rocket ship. And I think, ultimately we all hope and expect that it will create moments this summer. I also already daydream about moments that it might create in Los Angeles in 2028. There's a Miracle on Court version of Miracle on Ice that I'd love to see all of our teams be a part of. And this is, I don't shy away from, talking in those realities, even though they're a bit dreamscape, because why not? Like, isn't that what we should be thinking about? Isn't that what we should be envisioning? You're supposed to, as an athlete, have the mental picture of what you want that end outcome to be. That end outcome for us, I think, is certainly success in Paris and continued success. And then like a US based Olympics in 2028 with, television prime time and Canada against the United States and men's and women's and 3x3 for gold. Whew. Like you talk about, a sport household that I grew up in, our family, and still does, my current household, our family shut down for the Olympics. It was just the Olympics. That's what we did. We watched.
That's awesome.
We consumed. I could tell you, on two hands, all the Olympic moments that I'll never forget. And now to be part of a program that's trying to deliver that next Olympic moment for Canada that they'll never forget, that's an absolute blessing for sure.
And like I said at the start to the listeners, right, we're all thinking about Paris. This gentleman has already mentioned the next, right? And good leaders are able to do that. They're able to be present, learn from the past, but also continue to not let the moss grow on the rock and try to keep looking forward. And as a fan, that makes me confident. Two quick questions for you before we do some fun ones. You mentioned the 3-on-3 stuff. Seems like Canada basketball has really taken an approach and pushed that hard. Why? What was the conversation around that to make it a real thing? Was it because the 3-on-3 game was really expanding a lot, or was it something we wanted to buy into a little bit more?
You know what? It's all credit to four amazing women's athletes, Paige, Casey, Michelle, and Catherine, who put the 3x3 program on their back. And ultimately at the time, 3 or 4 years ago, with little to no funding from us or government, and said, we'll do it. We'll be Team Canada. And they paid their own way to travel the world competing in FIBA competitions, trying to get enough points to qualify for the Tokyo Olympics.
For real?
Yeah.
Wow.
And, along the way, they won enough competitions that they won some prize money and were able to kind of get a little ahead. But, when Ron and I started teaming up, a number of years ago, we said that has to end. These women are world-class athletes, and they were performing at a level far and above where the resourcing was. So if we catch up on the resourcing and resource against their talents, imagine what they could do. They were on the court together 5 times as a 4-pack last year in FIBA competitions. They won gold in each one. They're getting now, every once in a while we'd give 2 a weekend off and 2 a weekend off. And even that, we'd be in semifinal games competing for medals, right? So this team is qualifying. They've got 2 shots to qualify for Paris, one in a tournament at the beginning of May, one May, the weekend after May long weekend. If they, finish high enough in one of those 2 tournaments, they're going to Paris, and nobody deserves it more. They are an amazing 4-pack.
I love it. I didn't know. Yeah, I mean, that's great. I didn't know all that history that they were willing to
I
do it
get
themselves. And
British
yeah,
league athletes weren't getting carding money as a regarded,
mm,
despite it being an Olympic sport. They're still not getting what is considered like core funding from Sport Canada. So we're funding from above core buckets, and we're putting some of our own money in and getting sponsor money. And so like all of this, they're fighting all these obstacles despite being an Olympic sport, and they're still best among the best in the world. So I'm anticipating they get a chance to qualify, or that they qualify, and then they're going to. I think they're going to put 3x3 on the map in this country this summer.
nice, awesome. What does Canada basketball need from just the regular Joe, the average fan? What can we do? What do just the regular fan do to be able to help? Is it stream? Is it share? Is it buy
Yeah,
some merch? Is it all of it? Like how do we, is it talk about the game? Is it bring up Canada basketball when you can, from
yeah.
your guys' perspective?
Honestly, like be a fan that isn't just when we're on court,
Mm.
because our off seasons, it's a shame. Like we come out of the World Cup, history made. That team itself won't be on the court again together for another 9.5 months after that moment. That's the longest off season in sports. And
Yeah.
if you're trying to maintain a season ticket base and a sponsorship base and imagine if you're a pro sport and you've got a 9.5 month off season. It doesn't work all that well. So, how do we break through that? And I think our fans demanding more discussion about, our progress, our teams, turning it into dinner table conversation, reminding a neighbor it's not just when the bright lights are on. Like we just played 2 games against Nicaragua with our winter men's roster. That's worth tuning into as well. Just because Shea and Lou aren't on that team doesn't mean that team isn't dynamic and exciting and among the best in the world as well against the winter competition. So, when our women's program, I got a question when, shortly after it was made public that MLSE or the Raptors or whomever wouldn't be taking a WNBA franchise in the latest expansion. And a reporter asked me, do you think it's a shame that Canada doesn't have a WNBA team? And I said, we do. They're called Team Canada. I got 6 athletes that are WNBA athletes on that team. So if you're sleeping on that and missing that, you're actually missing the big picture. The big picture is Canada basketball has some of the best talent in the world. We don't play nearly enough, but when we do play, you need to pay attention. And when we don't play, you need to pay attention as well, because there's a lot happening in between that's newsworthy and content rich.
In case you didn't know, our second sponsor, ATO Basketball, aka ATO B-Ball, located directly at the Langley Event Center in British Columbia. This place has everything you need. I swear, if you walk in and you're a hoop head, there's nothing you won't be able to find. Sale items, Jordan, Adidas, Puma, you name it. The brands are all there. Shoes, jerseys, retro, current, Vancouver Bandits. You can even get every basketball you name. Shout out to our boy Jeff at ATO B-Ball for willing to be a sponsor to us. Go check them out. Check the store, mention us, and who knows, you might find yourself lucky. Thanks to ATO B-Ball. You framed that so well. Look at you. I never really thought of it like that. I mean, I like, we have a little place in Birch Bay, Washington, across the border here that we go to. And that was when I saw us, actually qualify, and I got emotional, right? And I agree. We need people to just treat it like it's the Canucks and the Leafs. Treat it like it's, the World Juniors, whatever it is. Buy in just the same. And like you said, don't be afraid. We don't need to fear anymore about, are we going to do this or will it happen? We're right there. We've proven it, and we need to be confident in ourselves and know that good things are going to continue to happen. So that's a good way to put it. Treat it like it's your pro team. Yeah.
I hope so.
That's why you're the CEO, man.
I don't know about that. I'm a passionate sports person for sure.
Love it. Okay. Well, you and your wife get the opportunity. Your oldest is going to look after the kids, because that's why you got to take advantage of having a 14-year-old, right? You get to go to a concert, best venue you've ever been to, or maybe a venue, doesn't matter. You got the best seat in the house. Who are you going to see?
Who am I going to see?
They can be dead or alive. Doesn't or and maybe it's someone you've seen already and want to see again.
Yeah, like I deep who's my always gotta see when they come through town is Foo Fighters.
Oh, okay.
I have an age old argument with a good friend of mine, Dave Haggoth with MLSC, of best frontman in the universe. I say Dave Grohl. He says Bono. We're both right for different reasons. He's maybe a little bit more right, but yeah, like Dave is just amazing to watch live. If
Nice.
dead or alive, like I'd certainly go back and try and catch Nirvana.
Yeah.
When we talk about those milestone moments, I still remember taking the package off of that blue CD with Baby
Yes.
Swimming, and I
From
could
HMV.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I can still tell you the smell of the house when I listen to that. So, yeah, I'd say Alyssa and I have gone to many a Foo Fighter show together, separately as well. It's kind of the soundtrack to my life. Weezer would be a close second.
Nice. I had the opportunity. I went down for Utah Clippers exhibition to go see Scott Morrison. They were in Seattle. Yeah. And so I had the whole day. I went down the night before, went out for dinner with Scotty, and then had the whole day. And I went to the museum there, and they've got an amazing Nirvana exhibition.
Oh,
It's like,
cool.
it's really, really cool. They've got old, like Kurt Cobain's like handwriting of old letters. I don't know how they kept it all, but it's very, very cool. Yeah, very cool experience. Um, okay, I like that. What do we got here? What's the greatest bag of chips out there? If you had
All
a
dressed,
choice,
all dressed ripples.
Ruffles.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, you went right to it.
yeah.
There was
No,
there's no waiver.
no. Give me that. A close second, salt and vinegar, Miss Vicky's. But yeah, those are my two.
Crunch.
Those are my two.
Well played, sir. Okay. All right. I want to see what you do with this one. You, four other players on the blacktop. Like, do you have okay? Or maybe, hey, maybe you're the GM, you're the CEO of the team. You pick five. Who are you taking? They can be all-time favorite players. They could be Canada basketball players. They could be your neighborhood hero. I don't know. Where are you going with this?
Wow.
The way that you laughed, though, I think we'll have you be the sixth man. Is that fair?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't.
okay.
I'd be so nervous. There's a content rule in our organization that I am never to be shot taking a shot. Um, so who? Yeah. Okay. So, boy, oh my goodness. I want I'm going a 2 point guard set with Shea and Steve Nash for sure.
Nice. Yep.
Two primary ball handlers. I, I listen. Natachan has become a good friend, a great friend, and I just adore the way that she shows up for this country. I also adore the way that she balances momhood, professional career, broadcasting career, all that. So I want her on the court for sure.
Nice.
And you know what? Here's what I'm going to do. I know, and I'm very close with Rowan and Denise now. I have never seen them. Certainly I saw Rowan a bit, but I would love to see them on the court. Denise was dynamic, Rowan dynamic, and now I know them for being dynamic in other areas of the sport, the administration of it. So if you give me a team with Steve, Shea, Rowan, Denise, and Nat, I think I win a lot of games.
I love it. Well played, sir. Man, Rowan Loki was ridiculous.
Yeah. There's a great photo. We found it in the archives at the office of him driving on Kobe. Yeah, driving on Kobe in a qualifier, and we got him to sign it. We put it up in the office. Awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah, dude was a bucket, no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Who have been some of the most important people in your life up to this point?
So my parents, for sure. My dad passed 2 years ago, but a lot of people have heard me say this, like we weren't always the closest because I think we were probably a little too much alike. But learned a lot from him about controlling your controllables. Life's about making sure you have options, hard work, variables. That's the one. My mom just compassion. for people and people first. She is, and still is that. I referenced Mike Cannon, a household and neighborhood friend, somebody I looked up to, a mentor, died far too early when I was 16, but
Mm-hmm.
kind of introduced me to what the business of sport was and is. I think often he was Alan Eagleson's principal secretary for the 72 Summit Series as well,
Oh,
and
wow.
was walking across the ice with Alan Eagleson, and one of the guys that's giving the Russian fans the bird during the 72 Summit Series as they're getting ushered out by security. I don't know if you've ever seen that clip, but Mike's a beauty, or was a beauty. And I still, like, as I'm doing all this Canada sport stuff, I can very much tell that my dad and Mike are up there enjoying it and watching it together. And then
That's
certainly
awesome.
people like, every boss I've ever had has made an imprint on me. Shannon Hosford's a great mentor and still friend. And, people like Brian Cooper, my board chair now, Scott Lake, our vice chair, my entire board, like they're constantly pouring their support into what we're trying to do, what we're trying to become, but also like to me as a person and what I'm trying to be. And I'm grateful for it.
Awesome. That's great. Sounds like you have a lot of people in your corner.
Yeah, I'll give a
Yeah.
shout. Not that I don't think he listens to podcasts, but I'll send it to him. The board chair at MLSE Foundation, Eris Kaplanis, who really, as my relationship with my dad strained a little bit as I got older, like he kind of became dad too for me. And again, an entrepreneur, somebody that understood the value of hard work and taking risks, but how to pour yourself back into community. He's done a lot for Toronto, a lot for various communities that'll never know, and taught me that balance. So I still grateful for him. Talk often. So.
Good. Love it. Okay, now these are really important ones here. What's the greatest cereal of all time?
Nobody likes this one, and I love it. Shreddies. I love Shreddies with some blueberries on it.
Who doesn't like Shreddies?
My kids are like, they get mushy so quick, and then they don't eat them. I love them.
Well, you're supposed to eat them. That's why
I used to just eat them dry, and that's
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
I love
you
best
put
marketing
trail mix.
Best marketing campaign of all time. New Shreddies, when they just turn them into a diamond. they like turned it on the axis. They're like brand new Shreddy, diamond Shreddies.
I may have been guilty as a kid to like load them with sugar, but I mean, Shreddies are all right. Yeah.
I don't know. Shreddies with some blueberries and milk. I love it.
Hey, at least you don't have to worry about them going missing, right? You got 5 people in the house. Food gets thrown on. Yeah, nobody's taking those.
No.
Everybody needs an Old Faithful.
Mm-hmm.
Now, does the CEO of Canada Basketball have a hidden talent that we may not know about?
My kids would claim I make the best craft dinner in North America.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's the secret? What?
No milk, just butter.
Just butter.
Yeah, just butter. More butter than you need. Gets it really gummy. And I was a good 240, 250 pounds in university because I perfected my craft dinner recipe, let's just say.
So you speak from experience, which is why through practice and trial and error, you've mastered it. Okay.
It probably had nothing to do with the beer, just the craft dinner, just the craft.
Yeah, for sure. No beer. Yeah. One of the questions we used to ask was, do you put ketchup on your macaroni? What's the Bartlett house? Is that a no-go or is it free play?
The kids can do whatever they want. I put sriracha.
Yeah. Jay Triano was like salsa and sriracha, almost like a little fiesta style.
Every once in a while, we'll mix in some tuna just to pretend like it's a healthy protein.
Make yourself feel a little bit better. Yeah. Well, listen, this has been great. Last question for you. One, I hope I'm going to see you in Vegas. Starkey better get me into all the events.
You bet.
Are you going to hit the Sphere? Will you have time to do that? You seem like a music guy, or is that another time?
We're hoping. Dave Hopkinson, who's on our board, works for Madison Square Gardens. Madison Square Gardens operates the Sphere. We are talking about some ideas for sure.
Nice. Awesome. Cool. Who would you like to see on our show, A Hoops Journey? But the thing is, you're the plug. That's what the young people call it, the plug. I'm sure you know what that means. Yeah. So don't throw a name around where someone's going to be like, yo, man, why did you put me on blast like that? Is there someone out there who's got a good story that we'd love to chop it up with?
Yeah, there's so many. Like there's so many great storytellers involved in basketball. Javon Shepard's one. Absolutely, he's talk about a bucket. Yeah, and he's a guy that I've gotten really close with, and he's really leaning into, you know, making sure that one of the things that we're trying to do is foster stronger relationships with our alumni that have come through the program. And Javon's been a big
Yeah.
help in creating some credibility. Like we're not doing it for any other reason than we just want you a part of this ride. Jump on the rocket ship again. And yeah, so Javon would be a great one. Great storyteller, played at Michigan. He's got some fantastic stories from there. Great stories from around Europe as well, and continues to be part of the basketball ecosystem with CBL, a TSN broadcaster too. So he'd have some good ones for him.
Episode 89 of A Hoops Journey, Javon Shepard.
All right. I promise.
He's good, though. Great talker. I just let you talk because I wanted to hear your opinion on him. The role that he stepped into, from chatting with him on the episode, he is built for where he's at right now. That's great. And I also love to hear, and I think having those alumni are so important. That's almost steal that from like a university kind of model, right? Like that, hey, let's bring these people back that have experienced it. Because it's important. It's important for even if you're, Shea, or someone from the previous Olympic team to say, hey, this is what mattered so much to me. It's still, it's still ball and it's still connection, right? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he's a good dude. They all are. Like I'm all these alumni that we're now starting to really get to know that played, a generation or two generations before I started. Like they all want the same thing for the program. They just they want the greatness for it, and they're willing to pour themselves into it now too. So I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm going to text you, and you're going to give me a name, though. So you can
I'll keep picking. I didn't know Shep was already on, so I will.
All right.
Come up with
hey, we take pride here, man. We've had some great guests. We've been super blessed. So many amazing people. Before we let you go, any last thoughts, reflections, ideas, things you'd like to say? And we do appreciate your time. It's been great chatting with you.
Yeah, you as well. And yeah, listen, I would just ask Canada to get on board. We're not going to win every game we play. I'm not promising that. We are going to show up strong. We are going to show up ready. And I think that more often than not will lead to basketball moments that people can be proud of. And that's the intent. That's the promise. And we just need Canada to show up for us too. So that's the hope.
I love it. Kind of this little bit of goosebumpy stuff there. I've been waiting my whole life to just not have to tell everybody, I don't even know how to friggin' skate. I'm so tired of us being considered a hockey nation. Yeah, and the fact that we're on the map with the men and women is so fantastic. As you've touched on so many people that are behind the scenes, behind you or beside you, probably is what you would like to say, doing the work, putting the grind in. And it's taken a lot of effort and energy to get to this point. But hey, man, we've made it here. Let's keep going. And kudos to you and your team. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. I'm really looking forward to that little Vegas roadie. It should be fun. Got me and 3 buddies coming down. I guess that's an A1 besides Paris. Paris would have been nice, but continued success. We'll see you in a few months in July. I'm looking forward to shaking your hand and meeting you in person. And again, thank you for being with us. It was greatly appreciated.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for being a voice for basketball in this country. I appreciate it.
You got it. I love it. I'm surprised people still want to listen to me. It's probably the guests that they want to hear, though. Episode 129. Thank you to our sponsors, and we'll see you on the next one.